Folks, good evening and welcome back to the Snakebite. It is our weekly sports show that airs every Wednesday at 5. John Kristovich with James Simpson bringing you this week's edition. And boy, we've got some great stuff for you. Crossover season is definitely here. We got basketball games tonight, a bunch of big-time games this weekend, and a whole lot more that happened last weekend. We'll talk about all that and more. Here is this week's edition of the Snakebite.
The men's basketball team is coming off a pair of road wins this past week as they took down both Lynn and Eckerd. We'll start with last Wednesday, which saw the men win 92-68 over Eckerd. The Mocs outscored the Tritons by 22 points in the second half to end up demolishing the home team, with Jaden Booth leading the way with 23 points, as he is ought to do. Then on Saturday, we saw the men shoot over 64% from the field on the way to building a 14-point halftime lead. This time it was 𝙃𝙃 𝙀𝙀 who paced the Mocs in scoring as he notched 21 in the 100-81 victory over Lynn. The team, tied for second in the conference right now, goes up against fifth place Rollins tonight at home.
Well, the men sure are rolling, but you know the women are also in the mixer as well. Not as fortunate this week. They lost both games they played on the road. Despite the record, the team really fought hard against top 10 nationally ranked Eckerd, falling by just 5 points as they could never really get ahead of the Tritons in that contest. Nonetheless, Ashley Schell had a big game for the Mocs, putting together 21 points in the loss. Saturday's game at Lynn was a forgettable one as the team shot just 29% from the field en route to a double-digit loss. Despite the tough week, the Mocs are still just one game out of fourth place, which means they would host in the Sunshine State Conference Tournament. With an 8-7 record, they play 3-11 Rollins tonight, right here at home.
It was a tough weekend for the Mocs baseball team as they lost the first series of the season against the University of West Florida Argonauts. Despite the series loss, the Mocs showed some real grit as each game came down to the final at-bat. The first game of the season went to 11 innings and ended in walk-off fashion from one of the Mocs' preseason all-regional players, first baseman Jeff LaCory, giving the Mocs a 3-2 victory over the Argos. The Mocs' own All-American 𝙃𝙃 also had a solid day on Saturday in his 2023 debut, finishing with 5 scoreless innings against the Argos in which he allowed 2 hits, gave up no runs, and tallied 5 strikeouts.
And not a bad way to open up your 2023 season. Only 2 hits and 5 innings for the All-American 𝙃𝙃. Stellar stuff. Well, the first game wasn't the only match to go to extra innings over the course of the weekend. On Sunday, Game 3 ended in the 10th inning once the home team failed to respond to an Argonaut home run that broke the 6-6 tie in the top of the 10th inning. And then just last night, the Mocs were back in action again, hosting Eckerd College at Henley Field. The story of the game was that the visiting Tritons had one very dominant inning, racking up 5 runs in the 6th alone. In the last 3 innings, the Mocs did claw back with RBIs from newcomers Sean Riley and Bryce Safrowich, but the team ultimately fell short 8-6. They'll have their next chance at victory this weekend. They will face the University of North Georgia in Dahlonega.
The softball team wasted no time getting into the swing of things this past Sunday, winning both games in their season-opening doubleheader versus Ursuline College. Game 1 saw the Mocs battle back from a 1-0 deficit as senior Kelsey Peck hit a walk-off 3-run bomb in the bottom of the 7th. She would go on to homer again in the second game as the Mocs used a shutout effort to win the ballgame 6-0. Each of the Mocs pitchers used a strong effort to lead their teams as newcomer Ashley Blesson pitched a complete game before Mel Rogers threw a complete game shutout in Game 2. The Mocs will head to Dahlonega, Georgia for the 4 games against King's University and West Georgia.
Good stuff from the pitchers on both diamonds, James. Good to see the complete game shutout there, especially. Impressive stuff. Well, we turn our attention to the men's lacrosse team. They got their season started this past weekend on the road, picking up a pair of wins in Alabama. The team really looked impressive, allowing just 8 goals over the course of the 2 games. In their season opener on Friday, the Mocs beat Alabama Huntsville 14-4 as Sean Nolan and newcomer Nolan Ty each had 3 goals, while Max Freestone did not allow a first-half goal in net. In Sunday's matchup against Montevallo, the Mocs decimated the home team, winning 23-4 behind another phenomenal game from Sean Nolan as he scored 5 goals. He enters the record books now as he has the most career hat tricks in program history with 28 over his career. Absolutely huge game in the home opener this Friday night. they take on a very good Anderson University team in a top 20 battle.
Yeah, John, that should be a good one. Two high-octane offenses competing against two stellar defenses. Should be fun. Men's tennis swung into action this past week, taking their season opener 6-1 over Gustavus Adolphus College after sweeping the singles category. With the win, head coach Rhett Rawlinson earned his first career win, while Chris Falcao was named the SSC Player of the Week for his performance. The Mocs then turned around to host 12th-ranked Lynn University on Monday, but fell to the Knights 4-2. Now, the men will look to serve up an upset this weekend when top-ranked Berry College comes to Lakeland for what is sure to be an exciting matchup between conference foes.
Absolutely, and I'll tell you what, James, men's tennis not the only one causing some racket this weekend, as the women's team kicked off their season in the two-day FSC Invite. The 24th ranked team in the nation saw standout performances from Kennedy Brown and Kelly Blaren, winning their matchups over Tampa 6-4. Jolie Miller, on the other hand, showed everyone why being single, at least in tennis terms, isn't such a bad thing, as Miller earned a 2-set victory in singles action over the Spartans. Like the men's team, the Mocs are set to host top-ranked Berry College in an early SSC showdown Saturday, February 11th at 9 a.m. out at the Winnie Worden Tennis Center.
Anytime you see fresh blood injected into any program, it is nice, and this year's golf teams are no different. This past weekend saw strong starts to the spring season from freshmen Freddie Parlby and Taylor Zachary. The unranked men's golf team held off high-level conference competition this past weekend at the Matlock Collegiate, held right here in Lakeland. Parlby ended the tournament knotted up in first, forcing a playoff to break the tie with the 13th ranked golfer in the country, Felipe Alvarez from Berry University. He would end up losing the playoff by a stroke, finishing second, but the team performed well overall as they were spearheaded by Max Barl and Clay Tucker, who tied for 8th at +8. The Mocs took second overall and will be back in action at the Hurricane Invitational on February 27th and 28th in Albany, Georgia. Women's golf saw action last weekend as well, as the 16th ranked team placed 12th at the World Golf Invitational. Their campaign was led by freshman Taylor Zachary, who placed 26th overall. Their next competition will be on February 20th and 21st when they host the Lady Mock Classic right here in beautiful Lakeland, Florida.
Sure am looking forward to that one. May have to watch some golf right there. Well, the men's and women's track teams competed last weekend at the Celebration Point Indoor Classic up in Gainesville. The men's team saw Owen Allen win the men's 5K with a time of 14:47, and then saw an absolute barn burner of a mile race. Senior Alex Guy was in the middle of the pack through 800 meters when he moved to the front and looked to break it open, but his competition just wouldn't quit. Coming around the first bend with 2 laps to go, Guy threw in another move, but it wouldn't be until the photo finish that the race was decided. Guy won in 4:15.6, beating Joel Nessie of Flagler by 0.03 of a second. Women's competition saw sophomore Emma Musante lower her indoor mile school record by 5 seconds with a time of 5:07.8, which was good for 7th overall in the field. Sophomore Maya Stam won the women's 5K with a time of 18:42. Both teams will be back in action next Thursday at the Collegiate Last Chance Qualifier.
And that brings us to our Week in Mocs History segment. Today, we're looking at February 8th, 1964, when Florida Southern's Bobby Bauman established a still-standing school record with 18 field goals in a single game. Bauman, who is 6th in Moccasin history in career scoring with over 1,700 points, led the Moccasins to a 115-93 win over Mercer. And now here we are almost 60 years later, and both the men's and women's teams are going at it tonight in Jenkins Fieldhouse. That'll do it for the Snakebite. I've been James Simpson. This has been John Kristovich. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next Wednesday at 5.
What? Before the 3-point error. One told me that, what would happen if he got him?
Speaking of the 3-point line.